Hey there, fam. What's going on? Oh, I am never going to be ready to come on to my live. There is so much freaking material to fact check, and then I run into more new material. Wow. So let's get straight to business. Let's do the where's the thumb? The thumb. Sound check, check. Everybody here? Is everyone in attendance? We're going to do roll call. Please hit that thumb if you don't mind. And what else? Where can I set it where it won't knock stuff down? Everything is like booby trapped over here. All right. Please make sure you're still subscribed if you are subscribed. And if you're not, consider doing so. Share a video of mine with somebody that you think might like my channel and turn on your notification bell to ring. And just doing my sound check. I got 2 likes, but no one in the house, which is fine. Like I said, I've got so much material. I'm just going to try to dive in. I'm going to do my quick disclaimer. Everything I say is simply my opinion for the sake of hoping to start a conversation and open up a discussion and learn something and be educational. All my videos are made for YouTube. It's an entertainment platform. And what else? That's about it. Virginia, I can never say her last name. Giuffre. It's almost as hard as saying Ghislaine Maxwell. I think I hit it right that time. So I see somebody is here. If you don't mind, I'm going to do my sound check, and you can tell me if it's good or bad or ugly. And I have so much to get into. I really want to just dive right into the poop fest. This is day 72 of our new administration. And what a coinky dink. Allegedly, Ghislaine Maxwell from prison had made a request to have little T, Donnie, come talk to her. And then Virginia Giuffre gets hit by a bus, like literally, and not just any bus, a school bus. I don't know if you can believe any of it. Is it just another distraction? Is it true? Did she really get blasted into at 68 miles per hour? I actually did a school bus driver training years ago, and I kind of wonder if school buses can even go that quickly, but you certainly do not drive above the speed limit under any circumstances, ever. So it almost makes me think that it's like in the movies where, it was like a ghost bus being driven by a remote control. If there was a bus, if this is even remotely accurate, I don't know. Thank you for the likes. And I see I've got just 3 likes and 0 people on board, which is unfortunate. I didn't text anybody that I was going live, but that's, like I said, that's okay. I've got so much information. Let me see if I can try to be linear a little bit, at least in my thought process and conversation. So little T has said that in his 78.75 years of being alive, I think his birthday's in June or July, and that he will be 79. In his 78 plus years of being on the planet, that no one has ever called him kind. No one has ever called him kind in over 78 and a half years of being alive. That's a little frightening right there. How many people at that age could say that? Honestly. And maybe people have, and he's forgotten, you always want to give people the benefit of the doubt, but why would you even say that nobody's ever called me kind? I guess because he wants to be scary. He wants people to be scared of him. Yeah, I think that's probably it. Oh, and look, I got 2 in the house. Woohoo. So man, my last video was the day before yesterday. I wanted so badly to come on yesterday, but it just wasn't really possible. There was too much going on in my house, and it wasn't fun. So I escaped and went for a walk and ran some errands and visited with a friend. And yeah, I got a lot done yesterday, but I did not get my YouTubing done. I didn't even do a YouTube yoga video last night. Dear, I confess. I did 2 yoga videos the night before last. It was really funny because there was a big storm right in the middle. That's why I did it again. But anyway, let's get on with this stuff. So there's a big election today in Wisconsin. We know that the Big E has been gifting people $1 million checks, 2 people, one white guy and one white girl, right? The white guy is like the head of some college Republican organization. Oh, but it was random, totally random. And the white girl had a very ethnic name, which I found interesting because I don't think either of those folks were selected randomly. That's just my humble conspiracy theory opinion, allegedly. But I want to talk about the election fraud. I want to go back to some election fraud information that I came across a couple weeks ago. The channel Rosie's Insights, she spoke about this Michael O'Connell deposition. This is going back to the 2000 election with Bush and Gore. And Michael Connell, did I say O'Connell? I meant Michael Connell. He was being deposed by somebody that I know, a lawyer named Bob Fitakis. I think I'm saying his last name right. It's Fitri Fritakis TIS, I think. He's a lawyer in Columbus, Ohio. He is pretty high profile. He does a lot of good work. So he was deposing Michael O'Connell about being the IT expert that rigged some computer systems for that election. If you remember the election in Florida the election culminated in the race between Gore and Bush in Florida. And I've been reading more about that, and it's so suspicious. But what's even more suspicious was that Michael Connell died in a single plane accident shortly after the deposition, 2008. And so he was flying, I think, from DC back to Akron, Ohio, and his little plane, he was the only one on it. It crashed into a house. I don't think anybody else was hurt in the crash. He passed away, and he had thought that his plane had been sabotaged a couple of times before, and he was able to unsabotage it before flying. But just in the last few days, who is the Citibank executive? No, that's another one. The Terry Dolan, the U.S. Bank vice chair of U.S. Bank Corp, right? U.S. Bank Corporation, 63 years old, Terry Dolan. He crashed his airplane into a house in Minnesota, I think 3 days ago. Today's Tuesday. Oh, it's all April Fool's Day. Everything I said was just April Fool's. No, I'm just kidding. I wish. I really do wish. So there is another Citibank executive named Marianne Kalanzi, who at 43 years old was red-rummed in her own home 2 months ago in southeast London. Blunt force trauma. I don't think they've caught any suspects. But it's interesting, isn't it? 2 bank executives coming to untimely passings aways within what, 6 or 7, 8 weeks of each other. Coincidence, I'm sure. So Yeah, the malfunctioning of the computers in the 2000 election vote tally. What had happened that night, the night of the election, is that the computers shut down, the system shut down, and then somehow some type of malfunction happened, and allegedly Gore's vote numbers started to drop. They went reverse, I think to the tune of like 19,000. But I will put links in the description to some of the articles that I've been reading so that you know I'm not just pulling things out of thin air. Oh, and this thing that I pulled out of thin air, I actually, let me read it to you. It'll help ground me and focus me. It's right here. It's an article written by Bob Fitrakis, Fitrakis. And the title of it is Diebold Indicted, Its Specter Still Haunts Ohio Elections. And remember, we've got this big Wisconsin election today. Diebold, the controversial manufacturer of voting and ATM machines, whose name conjures up the demons of Ohio's 2004 presidential election irregularities, is now finally under indictment for a worldwide pattern of criminal conduct. Federal prosecutors filed charges against Diebold Incorporated on Tuesday, October 22nd, 2013, alleging that the North Canton, Ohio-based security and manufacturing company bribed government officials and falsified documents to obtain business in China, Indonesia, and Russia. And let me add, this article was written shortly thereafter, that October 13th date. It was written October 31st of 2013. So falsified documents to obtain business in China, Indonesia, and what was formerly known as USSR. Diebold has agreed to pay $50 million to settle the two criminal counts against it. Diebold, I think it's Diebold. This is not the first time Diebold's been accused of bribery. In 2005, the Free Press exposed that Matt Schroeder, Republican chair for the Franklin County of Elections in 2004, reported that a key Diebold operative told Schroeder he made a $50,000 contribution to then Ohio Secretary of State Kenneth Blackwell for political interests, while Blackwell was evaluating Diebold's bids for state purchasing contracts. Sounds like conflict of interest, does it not? Schroeder admitted to personally accepting a $10,000 check from former Diebold contractor Pasquale, whose nickname just happens to be Patsy Galena, made out to the Franklin County Republican Party. That contribution was made while Schroeder was involved in evaluating Diebold's bids for county contracts. Schroeder was suspended for a month without pay for the incident. Despite the scandal, he was later appointed as Ohio Secretary of State John Husted's Director of Elections. The ghosts of the 2004 election irregularities. Diebold was at the center of Ohio's 2004 election debacle. Much of this captured by an article by Free Press senior editor Harvey Wasserman and this author, entitled Diebold's Political Machine. Walden Wally Odell, chairman of the board and chief executive of Diebold, was a longtime funder of Republican candidates. In September 2003, he held a packed $1,000 per head GOP fundraiser at his almost 11,000 square foot mansion in Upper Arlington, Ohio. He was feted as a guest at then President George W. Bush's Texas ranch, joining a cadre of prisoners and rangers who pledged to raise more than $100,000 for the Bush re-election campaign. I know this might be a little dry, but trust me, it's worth it. Most memorably, in 2003, Odell penned a letter pledging his commitment to helping Ohio deliver its electoral votes to the president. Odell defended his actions, telling the Cleveland Plain Dealer, "I'm not doing anything wrong or complicated." But he also promised to lower his political profile and to try to be more sensitive. And I need to grab a pen and write down Mitch McConnell's sister-in-law. Sis-in-law, and she was driving a Tesla when it malfunctioned a year ago, and she passed away. I talked about that, I think, last week in one of my videos, one or two actually, but I want to get back to that. Most memorably, okay, I'm just rereading this one sentence. In 2003, Odell penned a letter pledging his commitment to helping Ohio deliver its electoral votes to the president. Odell defended his actions, telling the Cleveland Plain Dealer, "I'm not doing anything wrong or complicated." But he also promised to lower his political profile and to try to be more sensitive. But Diebold Boss's partisan cards were squarely on the table. Prior to the 2004 election, Blackwell tried to award a $100 million unbid contract to Diebold for electronic voting machines. And they also make ATM machines. And for anybody who doesn't know, cash registers were invented in Ohio, in Dayton, Ohio. It's a major part of our Ohio history. So cash registers and ATMs and other things. Other things, hashtag other things. Okay. A storm of public outrage and a series of lawsuits forced him to cancel the deal. But a substantial percentage. Oh, hey, Fred Field. Hello, hello. How are you, my man? My main man. How's it going today? How was your storm experience the night before last? Mine was crazy. Yours might have been a few hours earlier than me, since you're, like a 6-hour drive west from where I am? Not to let anybody know what part of the country we're in, right? Back from my vein mapping appointment. Did I miss much? No, not really, but I'm going to continue reading. If you want to answer how you're doing, it's nice to see you. I'm glad you did your vein mapping. That's awesome. That's wild, though. Okay. Let's see. Also, I have to reread this. A substantial, because that's what happens when I look away quickly like that. A storm of public outrage and a series of lawsuits forced him to cancel that deal. But a substantial percentage of Ohio's 2004, excuse me while I scratch my nose, votes were counted by Diebold software and Diebold Optiscan machines, which frequently manufactured or malfunctioned in the Democratic stronghold of Toledo. Isn't that interesting? They frequently malfunctioned in the Democratic stronghold of Toledo. And full disclosure, I didn't even know that Toledo had a stronghold of Democratic voters. I had no idea. I would think so for like Cleveland, and I would think so for the big cities, Columbus, Cincinnati, Dayton, but I don't know. I honestly don't know. I know that our gerrymandering makes it so that the Republicans always win. Or I think it's the gerrymandering that does it. Man, my nose is so itchy. I took my medication, but it hasn't kicked in yet. So I might have to like scratch my nose a lot. I'll try to do it off camera because I hate when content creators do that. It's gross. But as long as they apologize and mention it, I don't mind it as much than when they try to do it on the sly with thinking nobody's going to notice when they do it right on the screen. That's just me. That's one of my peeves. Anyway, no storms here in the last 24 hours. They went south. Next 24 hours, category 3 for storms, tornado watch. Well, we had a tornado siren the night before last, right in the middle of me filming my yoga routine. I had to contend with the pets and the family for half an hour during that severe weather experience. It was exciting and nobody got hurt, so I love it. I love storms as long as no one gets hurt. But you never know. It's scary. And the poor dogs. Anyway, where was I? Also, I think I'm rereading a little bit. Also, in the Ohio 2004 election, a whistleblower leaked documents revealing that Diebold had allegedly used illegal, uncertified hardware and software during California election. The ghosts in the Diebold election machine go bump in the 2002 election, wherever Diebold and the other most well-known voting machine company Election and Systems Software, which is ES&S, go, irregularities and historic Republican upsets follow. Isn't that interesting? What a quinky dink. Alastair Thompson, writing for the Scoop Company of New Zealand, explored whether or not the 2002 U.S. midterm elections were fixed by electronic voting machines supplied by Republican-affiliated companies. The Scoop investigation concluded that the state where the biggest upset occurred, Georgia, is also the state that ran its election with the most electronic voting machines. Those machines were supplied by Diebold, ES&S, and Diebold would later merge and now count about 80% of all U.S. votes. And I don't want anybody to think that I baited and switched with the Virginia Giuffre thing, because that's not my intent. It all ties together. And if I need to, I can change the thumbnail and the title so that it is not going to feel like anyone got baited and switched. So, because I hate that. That's another thing I really hate. It's like, don't bait and switch me. Tell me what the video's about as much as you can in the thumbnail so I can decide if it's at the top of my priority list or not. Okay. And I'm going to read that last sentence again. ES&S and Diebold would later merge and now count about 80% of all U.S. votes. Wired News reported that a former worker in Diebold's Georgia warehouse says the company installed patches on its machine before the state's 2002 gubernatorial election that were never certified by independent testing authorities or cleared with Georgia election officials. Questions were raised in Texas when 3 Republican candidates in Comal County each received exactly the same number of votes, 18,181 on ES and S machines. Wow. I had never heard about that. That is wild. And of course, I'll put the link to this article in the description. Following the 2003 California election, an audit of the company revealed that Diebold Election Systems voting machines installed uncertified software in all 17 counties using its equipment. In 2012, Ohio Secretary of State John Husted approved a secret last-minute contract allowing ES&S to install untested experimental software patches on central voting tabulators in 39 Ohio counties. Congressional testimony exposed that last-minute patches were installed in several Ohio counties, including Miami and Claremont in the 2004 election. Johns Hopkins researchers at the Information Security Institute issued a report declaring that Diebold's electronic voting software contained stunning flaws. The researchers concluded that vote totals could be altered at the voting machines and by remote access. How frightening is that? Diebold vigorously refuted the Johns Hopkins report, claiming the researchers came to a multitude of false conclusions, fake news, perhaps to settle the issue. Apparently, an insider leaked documents from the Diebold Election Systems website and posted internal documents from the company to Bev Harris's Black Box Voting website. Diebold went to court to stop, according to court records, the wholesale reproduction of some 13,000 pages of company material. The Associated Press reported in November 2003 that computer programmers, ISPs, and students at least 20 universities, including UC Berkeley and MIT, received cease and desist letters from Diebold. A group of Swarthmore College students launched an electronic civil disobedience campaign to keep the hacked documents permanently posted on the internet. Diebold Computer Goblin causes the 2000 election to be called for Bush. The rush to embrace computerized voting, of course, began with Florida's 2000 presidential election. But in fact, one of the Sunshine State's Election Day disasters was the direct result of a malfunctioning computerized voting system, a system built by Diebold. The massive screw-up in Volusia County was all but lost in the furor over hanging chads and butterfly ballots in South Florida. So I have learned recently that was intentionally designed to eliminate paper ballots so that you could no longer do mail-ins and everything would be electronic, thus easier to manipulate. Okay. And I'm not even going to say allegedly because that seems so obviously true, but of course everything is allegedly, right? Especially in my videos. In part, that is because county election officials avoided a total disaster by quickly conducting a hand recount of more than 184,000 paper ballots used to feed the computerized system. But the huge computer miscount led several networks to incorrectly call the race for Bush. The first to call it was Fox News, where Bush's first cousin, another crinky-dink, John Ellis, was in charge of election night coverage. The first signs that the Diebold-made system in Volusia County was malfunctioning came early on election night when the central ballot counting computer showed a Socialist Party candidate receiving more than 9,000 votes and Vice President Al Gore getting a negative 19,000 votes. Who knew that was possible? Another 4,000 votes poured into the plus column for Bush that didn't belong there. Taken together, the massive swing seemed to indicate that Bush, not Gore, had won Florida and thus the White House. Election officials restarted the machine and expressed confidence in the eventual results, which showed Gore beating Bush by 97,000 votes to Bush's 82,000 votes. So about 15,000 votes. A 15,000 vote lead. But then he lost the 19,000 and then Bush gained 4,000. Hey, that maths, but where did the 9,000 votes for the Socialist Party come from? That math don't math. Okay, after the recount, Gore picked up 250 votes while Bush picked up 154, but the erroneous numbers had already been sent to the media. Harris had posted a series of internal Diebold memos relating to the Volusia County miscount on her website, blackboxvoting.com. When one memo from Lana Hires of Global Election Systems, now part of Diebold, complains, "I need some answers. Our department is being audited by the county. I've been waiting for someone to give me an explanation as to why Precinct 261 gave Al Gore a negative 16,000 votes when it was uploaded." A negative 16,000 votes. You can't have people just vote against you, just give you a negative vote. That's just not even a thing. I'd never heard of any of this until I read this article this morning. Let's see. Another from Talbot, Ireland, Senior VP of Research and Development for Diebold, refers to the key replacement of votes in Volusia County as unauthorized. Harris, oh, we remember Harris. That was the brown-haired Barbie doll. Catherine Harris? Is that the Harris that they're talking about? Harris had also posted a post-mortem CBS detailing how the network managed to call Volusia County for Bush early in the morning. Was it Catherine Harris or a different Harris? I don't want to like lose my place by going back, so I'm just gonna keep going. The report states, had it not been for these computer errors, the CBS News call for Bush at 2:17:52 a.m. would not have been made. As Harris notes, the 20,000 vote error shifted the momentum of the news reporting and nearly led Gore to concede. But it also gave rise to the incorrect chant that Bush won twice. What's partly troubling, Harris says, is that the errors were caught. I'm going to bet this isn't Catherine Harris. This is a different Harris. I'll look in a minute. I just really don't want to lose my place, and I'm afraid I will. I'm going to look right now. Harris. When did they introduce Harris into the conversation? Who is Harris, you guys? Were you paying attention? Beverly Harris's black box voting website. Okay. Not to be confused with Catherine Harris, who helped with the cover up, in my opinion. And let's see if I can find my place. I think it's right around here. Yeah. Bush won twice. What's particularly troubling, Harris says, is that the errors were caught only because an alert poll monitor noticed Gore's vote count going down through the evening, which is, of course, impossible. Diebold blamed the bizarre swing on a faulty memory chip, which Harris claims is simply not credible. The whole episode, she contends, could easily have been consciously programmed by someone with a partisan agenda. You think? Such claims might seem far-fetched were it not for the fact that a cadre of computer scientists showed a year ago that the software running Diebold's new machines can be hacked with relative ease. In 2006, Princeton computer scientists revealed that a computer virus could be easily implanted on a Diebold AccuVote touchscreen voting system, allowing the vote to be flipped. Professor Edward Felton needed that single individual with just 1 or 2 minutes of unsupervised access to either the voting machine or the memory card could rig the system. Carnegie Mellon's Michael Shamos called the discovery the most severe security flaw ever discovered in a voting system. Sorry if I was out of range for the mic. Diebold sued over faulty equipment, settles by giving away more faulty equipment to Cuyahoga County, which is Cleveland, Ohio. Election officials accused Diebold of breach of contract, negligence and fraud following the 2008 Ohio primary. Then Ohio Secretary of State Jennifer Brewer sued Diebold for breach of contract, warranty violations, and misrepresentations by Diebold representatives, including, is it Diebold or Diebold? I apologize if I'm saying the name incorrectly. I know somebody with that last name, and he goes by Diebold. So, and I don't know if there's any relation. I would imagine that there easily could be. Representatives involving 47 Ohio counties in a bizarre settlement in 2010, more than half of Ohio's county boards of elections received free and discounted voting machines and software from Premier Election Solutions, formerly Diebold. This is a result of the August 2008 lawsuit against Diebold filed by Bruner. In the counterclaim filed by Bruner, she alleged that Diebold voting equipment dropped votes in at least 11 counties. The failure to count votes occurred when Diebold memory cards were uploaded to computer servers. Diebold in 2010 reached a settlement with, this is almost over, reached a settlement with the Securities and Exchange Commission, SEC, after the US government sued them for $25 million in a fraud case. Diebold admitted that they had overstated the value of their election division by 300% in a stock manipulation scheme. U.S. Attorney Stephen Dettelbach noted that companies that pay bribes to public officials, whether those officials are in Cleveland, Ohio, or overseas, I think he's alluding to PP over there in the former Soviet Union, violate the law. Amen. Why would a free people allow a company with Diebold's track record to have anything to do with our elections at all? The Diebold indictment underscores a much greater problem in the U.S. election system. As long as the United States allows corrupt, partisan private corporations to secretly count its votes, I heard that the Big E is really good at counting the votes. He knows the machines really well that count the votes. Little T said so. So you know it's true if little T says it, right? Okay. Democracy remains in danger. Harvey Wasserman contributed to this article. And dang. Did I bore you to death, Fred? Are you still here? It looks like a few people are. Let me try to finish my coffee and talk about all these other things that I want to talk about. I want to get back to the Virginia Giuffre, how that ties in. I want to get back to Mitch McConnell's sister who passed away in a malfunctioning Tesla just over a year ago, how that ties in. There's a lot of stuff to get to. So let me see if I can drink my coffee to recharge the brain to remember it all, because a lot of it I have written down and it's just going to be challenging. But, you know, it's a good challenge. I love a good challenge. I have the cutest new mug. Do you see it's got little like lemons and oranges and grapefruits all over it? It's very springy and summery. It says easy peasy lemon squeezy, which it's a funny saying. I just like all the colors, like yellow and green and ivory. It's very relaxing. And there's some pink on there too, the pink grapefruit color. It could be a blood orange. Anyway, it's just cute. I just got it yesterday. Is it so adorable? I didn't really need a new mug, but it's a really good mug. It's perfect shape, perfect size, perfect colors. It's just perfect. So, yeah, we're expecting some big storms tomorrow. I think some flooding again. So, you're probably going to get hit with that. You said next 24 hours, category 3 for storms, tornado watch. It's crazy. And you got to wonder how much of this catastrophic weather is from climate change that doesn't exist, right? I think the whole denial of climate change is just so that they can continue to mine for lithium without regulations. You know, they can continue to like cancel the regulatory jobs and people and departments. Okay. So I've got some, what do I have here? Probiotics. I've got my acidophilus kefir. Good for your gut health. Mrs. Amir, hello. You are right on time. You know, whenever any of us drop into anybody's live, it's just nice that you come in and say hi, and you're never late and you never have to stay. I know a lot of times if I drop into somebody's live, I feel very compelled to stay just because it's just the way I am. I like to see things through to the end, but I know that we all understand as content creators that people, you know, have to duck out for different reasons. Many reasons called life, right? So yeah, let me try to guzzle a little bit of kefir and then pick up my notepad. So what do you guys think, Fred and Mrs. Amir and anybody else who would like to chime in? What do you think of the Virginia Giuffre getting hit by a freaking bus yesterday? Posting on Instagram. I think the whole thing could be fake. The whole thing, all of it from the ground up. But I don't know. I mean, it's kind of early in the reporting of it. And I think there's a lot of suspicion from a lot of angles that it's fake. Like me, I saw one place where it said maybe they're faking her unaliving to put her into a witness protection program. The whole thing is so sad. On her Instagram post, she said she just wants to talk to her children one more time before she passes away, and that she'll be passing away sometime on or around Friday. I've never heard of such a thing for a doctor to say you have 4 days to live. They don't really know these things, and they're not usually that specific. So the whole thing is sus AF, in my humble opinion. Mrs. Amir says, I know, right? But it is quite nice to see regular faces, should I say, or names. Yeah, you mean in the chats? It is. It's a very very cool community. It's sort of like internet friends and family. It's a phenomena of the times, right? And yeah, Virginia Giuffre is the one who was a homeless teenager working at Mar-a-Lago. She was an attendant, a spa attendant, I think. And then the story goes that Ghislaine Maxwell recruited her to be one of Little E's massage therapists, right? And so she did that for a while. There's the infamous picture of her with a man named Andrew and his arm around his hand on her waist. And that's just been so controversial ever since it was released publicly, right? Yeah, talking about the Epstein victim. So Mrs. Amir allegedly about 3 days ago, Ghislaine Maxwell, who I believe is in a prison in Florida, made a request to talk to the little T, to El Presidente. Never heard of her. I must have missed the early stuff. Oh, the price chick. Prince, the Prince chick. The price chick. I'm like, what? Was she on Prices Right? Yeah, yeah. She has had such a sad life with having spoken out. She's been attacked and criticized, and she was married. She got a divorce. She has 3 teenage children that she's been estranged from since the divorce. And then she was hit by a school bus yesterday in a car. So, like, the story is that she was trying to turn. I don't know if it was a left turn or a right turn, but that the bus didn't slow down and just blasted into her car at 68 miles per hour, school bus. Even without kids on the school bus, which, there's been nothing said about that. But I think that would be the first thing that would be mentioned if there were. It's still bizarre. It's a bizarre story. And then the post, she's got this big black eye in the post. She looks like she's been punched in the eye. And it says that she has renal failure and that the doctors told her she has no more than 4 days to live. And so she put up this post on Instagram, kind of requesting for her kids to get a hold of her so that she can say goodbye to them. I don't know. Oh, I see. I just saw a news conference as I came in, didn't watch, wanted to see you guys. Oh, you're so nice. So, yeah, I'm sure the story will be unfolding, whether it's true or false. I would imagine that whether it's true or not, that it'll be bolstered as if it's true. It wouldn't have gotten this far. I think it's only been like 12 or 18 hours that it's been in the news cycle. I've only seen a couple videos on it. The first one I saw was down the rabbit hole, and then Murad, how do you say his name? Murad Mali. I'll put links to both of them in the description. He was doing a video about the Royals, and then mid video he got all quiet because he was reading stuff on his computer as it was coming through. And then there's the other channel that I'm brand new to that I already put the link in the description, because that was like a really good solid 1 hour video about it with a nice discussion panel. So that link is already there. This is so good, this kefir, and I'm starving. I haven't eaten yet today. This is my breakfast, so my apologies, but I'm going to pick up my notepad and get busy. And yeah, kefir is just so good for you. It's basically just liquid yogurt. Anybody who doesn't know, I would think most people know kefir. So do you guys remember Mitch McConnell's sister-in-law passed away in a Tesla a year ago this March? So last month, and happy April Fool's Day. She was a billionaire CEO of her family's company. I think she was on her own property or maybe Mitch McConnell's property in Austin, Texas. And it was like a little gathering, a little get together. And I think she had a few drinks, but not too many. But she got into her car and her friends got into their cars. And then she accidentally, the Tesla car went into reverse, which was a problem that she had with that car. And other Tesla owners have had that problem too. I don't know the exact mechanics of it, but I'll put a link in the description to an article about it. I know I talked about it a couple of weeks ago and probably read an article about it. But it's a thing with that model of Teslas that it was like people would have that problem where it would go into reverse when they were trying to do something else. So she was like trying to do a 3-point turn. I'm pretty sure it was her own property. But like I said, if it wasn't her property, it was like her sister's property or something, because her sister is married to Mitch McConnell. And when she was doing this 3-point turn, the car went into reverse into a pond on their own property, and she couldn't get the windows to go down because those windows lock up when the car is on fire or submerged, because that's brilliant. And she tried to break the windows and she couldn't break the windows because they're freaking laminated. And so she had her phone, she called her friends that were right there on land and asked them to try to help her get out. And they were able to get into the water, I think, and they couldn't break the windows either. And they called 911. And by the time 911 got her out, she'd been underwater for 60 minutes. And, it's a horrible story, but it really makes you wonder, doesn't it? Was it actually an accident, or was there, I mean, it's so plausible to have remote control devices to control these computerized cars. I mean, like the Swatsta car that exploded in front of the Trump Tower New Year's Day. That could have been remote controlled. These airplanes that crash into houses, could be something going on there too. Black Hawk helicopters that fly into commercial American Airlines planes full of Olympic skaters and political activists. I don't know. I'm just going full-fledged conspiracy theory, in my humble conspiracy theory, allegedly. I got into one of Rich Lux's lives last night. He's never on live, or I don't think I've ever caught him live. And I told him that I use his little quote there. So that was cute. He read it out loud. I see. I just saw a news conference. Okay. You mean, Fred, are you talking about for April Fool's Day? Like this whole freaking thing has been an April Fool's joke. A 2.5 month long April Fool's joke. So the reason that I bring up the New Year's situation with the Cybertruck in Vegas, and the white Ford F-150 that destroyed so many lives in New Orleans this year on New Year's, is that I don't know. There could be some kind of conspiracy that it was a big distraction to keep people from looking into the election hygiene, because that was 3 weeks, roughly 3 weeks before the inauguration. And it felt to me like the election hygiene was not getting looked into properly, but maybe people were starting to talk about it and think about it and do something about it. But then it was just like one distraction after another. DTS scary, Mrs. Amir, are you talking about the thing with the car in the pond? I mean, it's so scary on your own property, in your own freaking body of water, and just simply trying to do a 3-point turn. He is the number one fool. I agree. And so now today, April Fool's Day, we've got this election going on in Wisconsin with the real number one fool. I'd say that little T is like the second in command number one fool, right? I'd say that title has to go to freaking the big E. That man is so out of control. So out of control. Yes, I saw that with unburnt IDS suspect. I'm sorry, Mrs. Amir, I don't know what you are referring to. The DTS scary, and then you were responding to my question, but I'm a little lost. I invite you to explain if I'm missing something or however it goes. So that banking executive that passed away in the plane crash in Minnesota a couple of days ago, was it Friday or Saturday? He was the vice chair of U.S. Bank Corp, 63 years old, Terry Dolan. He was the only one injured in the plane crash. He didn't survive. The plane crashed into a house, and, a big fiery crash. Extremely similar, if not a duplicate, to the way this Michael Connell passed away back in 2008. Like the exact same, basically. Hold on, I gotta let a dog in. Get there, Coco. Hey, baby. She's so cute. She loves to sit with me. She is so sweet. Okay. So, and then the Citibank executive, Mary Ann Kalonzi, 43, was red rummed, not just suspected red rum, but actual red rum, in her own home in Woolsworth, Southeast London, 2 months ago, blunt force trauma. So another person who passed away in their own home from blunt force trauma was almost 3 years ago on July 13th, and that would be little T's first wife, the one who's the mother of his 3 kids. Ivana, the one who's buried at Bedminster, the place where the Big E was showing off his spoon and fork toy that he invented and was holding up on his finger for hours and hours, making everyone look. And that poor baby mama of his, I think that's the one named Siobhan, who is sitting next to him and like literally rocking like she was in a trance the whole time. It's being videotaped and nobody's talking, and she's just kind of got this like weird blank stare. Every time I see her on videotape, she has that weird blank stare. She really looks like a prisoner. She really looks like a CLUT victim. So she's the one who's his employee, who's had one of his children recently. And I might get them confused. There's so many of them. So there's 14 of the kids, 13 of them that are survived that we know of. The one that passed away in the year 2002. The one that was born in 2002 passed away in 2002. That was Nevada. Very, very sad. So it's weird that Big E doesn't talk about that, but he talks about his other son that was born a twin with, who's now a daughter, Vivian Wilson. So Vivian Wilson was born as a set of male twins. And then she did a transgender completion, I think, 2 years ago. And Big E says he was tricked into signing off on that. And he says that she died of the woke mind virus. And it's just like, it's really disgusting. She seems like a lovely young woman, very bright, very strong, lives in part of Asia. I can't remember if it's like Korea or I'm not sure. Singapore? I think she lives in Singapore. Anyway, she's 20 years old. She posts a lot. She doesn't like to talk about her biological father, but she does. When he brings her up, she pushes back. So that's been going on. And she suspects that her mother and the Big E used like a gender selection process with in vitro fertilization. Allegedly, maybe all of his children are in vitro fertilization, allegedly because he might have installed a computer chip that might have created a problem, allegedly. I don't know. In fact, I believe that that's not been verified. I mean, how would you verify it? HIPAA laws, and if somebody wants to not tell you, they don't have to tell you. And then there's the HIPAA laws too. But whatever it is, Vivian believes that all 6 of the boys that her mother gave birth to. So it was Nevada, and then Vivian, whose birth name was Xavier, and I forget the twin brother's name, but then a set of 3 triplet boys was born after that. So those were all in vitro. At least the twins and the triplets, I believe, were in vitro. Not so sure about the first one. So the first one passed away when he was 2, 3, or 4 months old. Very, very sad. And he passed away from SIDS. And Elon's father, Big E's father, is super critical and says that baby had only been in the care of nannies, that the parents never saw the baby. I don't know if that's true, and I don't know if that's just a grandfather's perspective. He also says that then with the 5 surviving children, that there were 5 nannies, that each child had their own nanny, and that full time, full-time nanny for each kid, a man-to-man defense. And then when the parents got divorced, Big E and his first wife, is her name like Justine or something? I can't remember. When they got divorced, that then each baby had its own nanny at each parent's home. So then there were 10 nannies. Wild. What is her name? I don't like to put bad information out there, even if I fix it later. It's easier. It's more effective if I fix it right away. Justine Musk. Okay. I think that's what I said, Justine. Did I actually get it right? Okay, the first article that comes up says E. Musk's first ex-wife says he kept pushing her to become a blonde. How weird. She's a Canadian author, first ex-wife of businessman Elon Musk. And yeah. Right. Let's see what you guys are saying. Yes, ma'am. DTS. That is, I meant the lady dying in the Tesla in the pond and the guys who burned by T Tower, Vegas. Yet his ID wasn't burned to similar degree. That was sus AF. Just like, not to jump tracks here, but just like Brian Laundrie's ID was not ever found, never materialized. I'm pretty sure that's because it's with him and he hasn't been found or materialized. But yeah, that whole thing with Matthew Livelsberger's ID being in his wallet and just like barely burned on the edge, but you could see his picture and you could see his name. So convenient. So convenient. Thank you, Mrs. Amir, for your comment. I'm going to reread the second half of it that I got distracted while I was reading it. Yet his ID wasn't burned to the similar degree, suspicious incident, and that former U.S. Army guy. Right. So Matthew Livelsberger was active duty. I think he had like a 20-year career with the military, and I want to say he was about 37. And he was on a leave from being stationed in Germany. He was here in the States for the holidays. I think he lived in like Arizona or something, somewhere around there. And then rented that truck with the app that is sort of similar to Airbnb, but for cars. The same app that the other guy who was former military, the guy who rented the F-150. And I can't believe that I never realized that that white pickup truck was an F-150 until like a week ago. And I was like, not even sure if it was. The thought really never occurred to me. Then I'm like, wait, was that an F-150? And it was the F-150 that rammed into those 14 people. So when the thing happened with Livelsberger, it really felt to me like so contrived, you know, there being that brand of a car and that brand of a hotel tower combined at this juncture in our political atmosphere. How could that not be a political statement? But then Fox News said like 50,000 times or 50 times or something that Livelsberger had no animosity towards little T, and he made that abundantly clear in his mini manifesto, and it made no sense at all. And it just really felt to me like it was a publicity stunt, maybe masterminded by the owners of those companies, and a distraction, maybe masterminded by the owners of those companies to keep people from thinking about the election hygiene. And this was before I had any knowledge that this whole problem with the electronic voting machines had the history that it has here in my dear state of Ohio. How terrible. and how awesome it is that people like Bob Fitrakis and his comrades have been working on this for all of this time. And even when I was more associated with Bob, I didn't know. I didn't know that he had this big project that he'd been working on. It would be what, like 20 years now? At least 20 years now. So, yeah. Um, let's see. Brian Laundrie is still out there somewhere. I believe it. E is super gross, and it says E is cross, but I knew you meant gross. He is so gross. You look at his face, and he's had like facial implants to give himself more of like a square jaw. It looks like he's had like the Botox cheek injections that the ladies get. He's definitely had the hair plugs. If you look at pictures of him from when he was younger, he had a receding hairline when he was a lot younger than he is now. He's just like so weird, and he just wants everybody to be bots, and he talks about making robot friends, and it's like, how do you define friends? I don't even want to know. Like, robots can't be your friends. That's not a thing. I don't care how friendly they might be or how kind. He was the one who said those words about little T being so kind when he was interviewed by, I believe it was a Fox reporter like Brett Baer, who asked Big E, what are some things about Donnie that most people might not know? And Big E sat there thinking very contemplatively before he said, he's kind. He's never done anything mean. And it's just like, the man is a public figure. He's been a public figure his whole life. Why would people not know this? And then the man goes on to respond to that, saying that no one's ever called him kind in his freaking almost 80 years of life. Like, really? None of your family? None of your friends? Oh, that's right. I didn't know. I knew you didn't have friends. Although I think that little E was one of his friends, probably one of his only friends. It's probably the only kind of friend he has. And he still has little E's freaking Cessna jet. He still flies that around. He was flying that around during the campaign. Doesn't he have enough money to buy a new jet? What's wrong with him? That thing should just malfunction itself and go away. Retire it, right? Autocorrect be out here messing up. I know. Isn't it so annoying? I'm sorry. I was blaming it on you, Mrs. Amir. It's horrible. I hate it. So, yeah, the election fraud. Excuse me. Um, so Mark Elias is the one who wrote that open letter to the Big E, the attorney, who is very vocal about he's just very vocal about the freedoms that seem to be getting eliminated or eradicated through this new administration. And specifically right now, today, and I'm so grateful that so many people are talking about the illegal deportations that have happened, the illegal accidental deportations that the administration has admitted to, but they're not correcting. And then you've got idiots like Vance coming out and speaking gibberish nonsense, saying that they weren't accidental and that they're valid, and then he's not doing his homework, and then he's doing the dirty delete, instead of just, you can amend your post and say, oh, I didn't realize. But no, he's just deleting his crap because it's just crap, right? So the massive power grab to control our elections is quite frightening. And that's exactly what's going on right now with Wisconsin, and with the big E, and with the $1 million prizes. And he did that in Pennsylvania, and the Pennsylvania, it seemed like that state was going to say it was illegal, but then in the end seemed like there was a judge who was willing to turn a blind eye to law and ethics and say, oh, no, everything's fine. So it's got to stop. It's got to stop. But the thing where I think Virginia Giuffre really ties into all of this is you've got all this oligarchy going on, all these white men trying to have all of the power of the people all to themselves. And these dudes are so gross. They're so stupid. Like, they're supposedly really smart, and they're just not. They're just dumb as a box of rocks, in my humble opinion. But who am I, right? But the thing with dudes is that their weakness is the ladies, right? So then you put a 16-year-old like Virginia Giuffre when she was 16 in front of them, and they just can't freaking control themselves. And that's their Achilles heel that's going to bring them down. And Ms. Anna Bees is here. Hello, my dear. How are you? How's it going today? April Fool's Day. So I got bigger pieces of paper because my little notebook, the paper is so small. I was having a lot of trouble fitting everything on it. So I have a whole another page of notes on the big paper to go over with you guys. I missed you too, Anna Bees. Sorry, I had posted the live last night that I was going to come on at noon, and I was only a couple minutes late, I'm happy to say. I didn't even set it back. I almost did set it back because I knew I was going to be a couple minutes late. But yeah, the poop fest. We're on the 72nd day of this administration, Anna Bees. 72nd day. And that leaves less than a month for the first 100 days complete. And my fear is that this Project 2025 will be completely installed by then, because that was their plan, was to install their hideous, nightmarish, Handmaid's Tale-esque Project 2025 in their first 100 days. And who knows how many baby farms there already are. We were talking about that in one of the last videos. One of you lovely viewers brought it up in the chat, the farming out the wombs in California for the Chinese like renting women as surrogate mothers, which I don't think you're supposed to have a money exchange for that. Surrogacy is very complicated and tricky because you're not supposed to have money exchanged. Like, I think gifts are okay, but just not money gifts. So you can like buy a car or a house for somebody as a surrogate. You can pay all their medical bills, of course, but once cash is exchanged, it becomes very dangerous very quickly, and it's like human trafficking. So that is a big issue right now in California with people from China having surrogate mothers in California for their babies. And then the long game is not just then their Chinese baby will be born an American citizen, but the long game is that then that Chinese baby can bring the parents and grandparents to America to become American citizens. Oh, I totally ranted on your last live in the comment about this, right? Yeah. Because, yeah, you were like the only one in my comment section practically. I think there was like one, maybe two other people that just commented once or twice. But that was awesome, Anna Bees. You were the star of my show, and I really appreciate it. You do a good job, so thank you. It didn't seem like a rant at all to me. It was nice because then I had a dialogue. It's not just me. If it's going to be just me without the interaction, then I might as well pre-record, and then I can kind of make them shorter, more to the point. But I would much rather have the conversation with you guys live and have it be more organic and less to the point. I'm just kidding about that part. I do like to try to get to the point. So let me look at my notes here. Cory Booker overnight, you guys, have you heard about this already? I don't know if he's still doing his freaking marathon, his filibuster. He started last night, probably before midnight, maybe 10 o'clock at night. I'm not sure. I'd have to look. Maybe one of you knows. But Cory Booker started a filibuster marathon. He was still going strong this morning. His plan was to go for as long as he could, speaking out against the atrocities that I was just talking about, the illegal deportations to El Salvador. I mean, sending anybody to those prisons is, the way they're running those prisons is just sick. It's just straight up demonic, in my opinion. It's very reminiscent of World War II. It's very disgusting and inhumane and un-American. That's not how we do things here. These people need to be stopped. They need to go to prison. And I would say, like, not even a prison like that, because that's just not humane. But they're doing that to a lot of people, allegedly. Apparently, that's what they're saying. That's what they're claiming. That's what they're showing evidence of. And it's like they're bragging when they have a puppy killer in front of a bunch of prisoners, Christine Nome, and you're not allowed to use your prisoners as advertisements like that. That's completely illegal, more illegal. They don't freaking care about laws. They don't care about ethics. They don't care about humanity. They don't care about anything except themselves and the almighty dollar, which I'm pretty sure that the big or the little T is going to try to put his Donnie face on. They're talking about the $100 bill. Like, why not every dollar bill, whether it's a 1 or a 5 or a 10 or a 20 or 50 or 100 or 1,000? I mean, why have coins with anybody's face except his, right? Gross. Okay, so Indiana University, what's going on over there? They have disappeared a professor who's been there for 20 years. Him and his wife have disappeared. So that's in the news. Dare I read you the article about that? I don't know, because I read you that super long article and I don't want to bore you guys to death. What happened with Lilith? Yeah. So yesterday was the deadline with the article that I read in my last video about the lake in the southern part of California that has all of that lithium. Is it the Salton? I think it's called like Lake Salton Lake. And it, like, the cauldron, they call the cache of the earth's minerals a cauldron. So it's a cauldron of the Lilith. And they made this request to do some research on it on the 27th, with only a 5-day window for people to express any concerns or disagreements to that happening. And the deadline for that was yesterday. So I would imagine that it's moving forward. I would imagine that a lot of people spoke out about it. Mrs. Amir says, my 2.5-year-old says, hi, Auntie. Aw, I can't believe your little one is 2.5 already, Mrs. Amir. I remember when this was a newborn, when I first started my channel and you first started coming into my chats. I think the first time you spoke about your new baby, he was like 3 or 4 months old. That is so cool. That is really cool. Thank you for your consistency. How neat. So, okay, talking about the cachet of the Lilith, and thank you again for bringing that back up, Anna Bees, because there's all of this news with NK being seen at her friend's mother's funeral a couple months ago, and then that hitting the interweb and hitting YouTube over the weekend. And I did my last video about that. And then now, today, there's a lot going on with Armchair Detective, who has like deleted his platform because of lawsuits from the Rusek family. And I'll put a link in the description to a video that he recorded yesterday addressing these issues. And I think it's really, really pertinent, not just for him, but for freedom of speech. And of course, none of us want to make people's trauma worse than it already is. And, you know, a lot of times you think your trauma couldn't be any worse. And then, yeah, people make it a lot worse. That can happen. And even if that's not your intention, and that's good for people to bring it up and express themselves if they feel like that's going on, if they feel like they're being re-victimized like that. And people can apologize, they can cease and desist. I mean, I'm all for not making things worse than they already are. Absolutely, obviously. However, it seems to me that Armchair Detective is kind of being used as like a poster child, and that they're projecting, people have projected all of their hatred and disdain over what happened to that beautiful Watts family, Shanann and her babies. And they're projecting all that vitriol towards Vinny, the Armchair Detective, when really I think all that vitriol should go back onto, in my opinion, the DA who mishandled the case and the mistress who got away scot-free, who lied and lied and lied. And it's just really disgusting. But something that came up in this trigger warning. I did not know this. This, I think, was in Vinny's video, because I think that's the only video I've watched about it today. But again, trigger warning. Major, major trigger warning. The girls, when they were put through the thief hatch of the oil tanks, we know that those thief hatch holes were 8.5 inches wide and then they got a little bit more narrow. Like the outer ring is 8.5 inches wide, but then there's an inner ring that's less, so probably more like 7.5 inches. And those girls were 3 and 4 years old. Bella was almost 5, or she was more than 4.5. She was tall, but she was slender. And then Cece had just turned 3, and she was, she might have had more girth on her than her big sister, you know, because that's just part of the development with toddlers at that age too. Either way, they both had relatively big shoulders that would not fit through. Trigger warning. I did not know that their shoulders were dislocated when they were shoved through there. It just killed me. I figured their collarbones had broken, and I don't know if that's true or not, but they had left out the part about the dislocation of the shoulders, which I would think is why they don't want those little girls' autopsies to be seen. I think they're sealed for like 50 or 100 years. And that was part of the deal with Chris Watts's plea agreement, was to keep the children's autopsies sealed. So I personally believe that he may have been the one to shove them in there, because he knew which kid was in which tank. He knew that without even thinking. When Tammy Lee put the photographs, the drone images in front of him, and she asked him to put the initials of each girl, or actually, I think she asked for him to put the initials of each of the 3 victims, and 4 when you count the baby in Shanann's tummy, to put initials of where they were located. And he put the initials of each of the girls onto the right tanks. And how on earth would you know that if you weren't the one to do it? Because that could easily get a little bit confusing. And why on earth would you put them in 2 separate tanks, other than if you thought that maybe they would disappear more quickly if it wasn't 2 of them in 1 tank? I don't know. But he also knew the sound of the splash. And again, trigger warning, the crude oil in the tank that Cece was dropped into was a lot deeper than was it 18 inches? I think it was 18 inches or slightly less, 17 inches of crude oil that Bella was dropped into, you guys. Like, I did not realize that until a couple of months ago. I've put that in a couple of the videos. Unbelievable. So that's not going to go splash. That's going to make a totally different sound. But he just said the splash noise was very different, that he knew that the one that Cece was dropped into was a lot deeper. Plus, it's a shorter distance. I think it was like maybe as much as 9 feet deep. The one that Cece was dropped into, it was at least 4 feet deep, somewhere in there. And so she splashed, but then Bella, who was a lot taller, would have been dropped a much further distance to slightly under 1.5 feet deep of crude oil after dislocating their shoulders. I mean, how on earth could anybody be satisfied with just him getting convicted when NK bald face lied numerous times, and that biatch has to live with herself every freaking minute for the rest of her life, and she is cursed. She is a miserable sack of crap. She will never be anything better than an absolute murderous, disgusting piece of crap. Absolutely disgusting. She can just step off. How appropriate for the one video of her face. How poetic for that to show up, that she's A, at a funeral, B, wearing all black with that little skinny white collar that almost mirrors like a priest's collar or a nun's collar, but it's quite the opposite. And she's literally walking away from the cross, literally walking away from the Bible. And she's got this horrible look on her face with the shifty eyes, looking like the cat who ate the canary or dislocated the shoulders of the canary or whatever. I actually personally don't think that she was out there on the site based on all the evidence. I think that CW was out there on the site, and then his coworkers got there pretty quickly and denied that it looked like anything suspicious was going on, which is suspicious. There's no way he dug a hole that big that quickly and then didn't look suspicious, didn't look tired or sweaty or anything. Those two are in on it. Troy McCoy and the other one, I think the other one was female. Troy McCoy, sus AF, went back out there when he was told not to. And that whole thing with the fire stick. Anyway, back to NK. I believe that NK was in the house cleaning up. I believe that the law enforcement was touching the stairs at some point in the body cam footage when they were first in his house, and that they mentioned something about the carpeting on the steps being wet. Do you guys remember that? Because I asked Watsy Obsession in her live the other night when I was on her panel if if anybody else remembered that. And I don't think anybody there did remember it. And maybe that's something that I am crossing my wires with, but it would make sense if anybody had lost their life upstairs, that there could have been, again, trigger warning, there could have been bodily fluids that ended up on the steps. And I'm not talking about the red stuff, because I don't think that anybody had that going on. I think it was all what you call soft, KILL, which is suffocation. Maybe chloroform. All it takes is a pillow. All it takes is closing the mouth and the nose. And we know that Shanann was strangled. And I believe that the one in the video who says Shanann like that and squeezes that freaking plastic water bottle, I believe she had her hands around that neck and did that. And maybe those two were doing it together, because CW kind of slipped up in his 2019 interview at Dodge Correctional Facility in Wisconsin, when Tammy Lee and Dave Baumhofer went to visit him. And I think he said it was like somebody had their hands wrapped around his hands. Like, I mean, the whole way he describes the whole thing in all of his lies is he knew it was going to happen. He knew that these are his words. He knew it was going to happen when he put the girls to bed that night, and he didn't do anything to stop it. I don't think he's the one who did that to the girls. I really, as much of a piece of crap he is, I don't think he had it in him. He did so much of the direct hands-on caretaking for those children. But we know who would have wanted them out of the picture. And yeah, so the dislocated arms, shoulders, just unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable. So, you guys, I had an awakening, I think it was last night, something about North Carolina and South Carolina having really bad histories for domestic violence. And I was like, huh? So I Googled it. Do the Carolinas have particularly bad histories for domestic violence? Lo and behold, they do, which ties into the Micah Miller case and the cover up with Micah Miller's case. So it said, per Google, that I think, I can't remember if it was North or South Carolina, I think was number 5. I think, and I'm not 100% sure, but I'm pretty sure Oklahoma was the worst. And it might have been Alaska was next. Arizona and Indiana were definitely a couple of the top ones. And then South Carolina. I think it was South Carolina, according to my notes here. Just really, really disgusting. Like, why would you have a state with a history like that? I guess South Carolina with the racism, that translates to me quickly. If you're going to treat people with different colored skin like that, why wouldn't you treat people with the wrong gender like that? I say wrong gender, I'm being sarcastic, but so despicable, so disgusting. These people are just so sick. You look at people like John Paul Miller, and you can see the sickness in his face. These people that want to do carnal acts with children, with girls that are underage. Like, what the F is wrong with you? And I guess they have a worse history there in South Carolina than other places, which ties into another thing. I'm just going to go full conspiracy theory cray cray. The whole thing with the child labor laws in Florida. It seems that those child labor laws were created to protect children from being trafficked in hotels in Florida. That used to be a big problem. So they made the child labor law to try to diminish the problem. And now they're trying to recreate the problem worse. It's just unreal. And we need to fight back. We need to resist. We can't let this happen. They're gonna Big E already has his own little compound in Texas with his 11 children on it that we know of. How many does he have in the dungeons there, allegedly? In my humble conspiracy theory opinion, possibly. How many? Anna says, I might be crossing my wires, but I think so too. Well, if you and I both think so, I mean, I can like see in my mind's eye one of the police officers, it might even be Baumhover, it might even be Dave Baumhover. I can't say his name. Dave Baumhover, who did that because he's the guy with the little mustache and he's in those videos. He was one of the first detectives to arrive to the house. You know, I think he was the one at the bottom of the stairs with Chris when Chris got really jumpy about the paper bag full of clothing, that he's like, oh, those are my fat clothes. You don't need to look at those. I was just taking those to work to give away to some fat guys that I work with because, you know, I'm all skinny now. And then wasn't Shanann's carry-on suitcase, her like wheeled suitcase right there? And why he wouldn't go through those things, I don't know. When you've got a missing mother and 2 children, like, very bizarre. Very, very bizarre. They did not handle that situation well. And I think that that's one of the things Armchair Detective kind of got roasted for, was criticizing law enforcement. But they should have sealed the house premises. They should not have allowed Nicole Atkins and her son Nick in there. But I guess it's good that they did, because Nick Adkins was the one who located Shanann's phone right away upstairs in the sofa when Chris tried to hide it in the pillow there. I mean, he had those spidey senses. He went right to it. Like how he did that, a miracle. Let's see. Yeah, I think you're right, Jazz. Isn't it weird that it happens more in red states? Yeah. Yeah, I hadn't thought about that with Oklahoma, Arizona, Indiana, South Carolina. And like I said, I'm pretty sure Alaska was the other one in there. I know for sure Oklahoma was one, and that Arizona and Indiana were before South Carolina. Because Indiana, you know, I'm right next to that state, and I'm just like, you know, what's wrong with their freaking law enforcement? They're as crooked as they come, and unfortunately, they come pretty crooked. But Indiana is some of the worst. And I'm like, why do they have to have such a rancid history? Why? It's terrible. It's absolutely terrible. Very racist too. So yeah, when you have, you know, the racism, the sexism, and the homophobia, they all go together. It's basically self-loathing, in my opinion, by the people that are racist, sexist, homophobes, that they just hate themselves. And so they project that hate onto everybody else. And it's extremely hurtful, especially when they're the white boys in the position of power that have more control over the resources than the majority of people do. And right now, here we are on the eve of, what are they calling it? What's little T calling it? Liberation Day tomorrow, the day of the tariffs. Like, he's just off the wall with his cray. I'm going to do these huge tariffs. I'm not going to do these huge tariffs. Yes, I'm doing the huge tariffs. No, I'm not doing the huge tariffs. It's like, just shut the F up and figure out what your job is and do it. But no, all this crazy stuff that him and his cabinet are doing and Doge, it's all because they don't know how to run a government. They don't know what their jobs are. And their jobs, as far as they're concerned, is to destroy the government. That's it. And this whole thing with education is so freaking scary. And they're trying to justify it by saying, well, eighth graders have like a fifth grade reading level. It's like, well, then give them more resources, not less. And I'm sure that's a lot better than El Presidente anyway. I mean, that man can barely read. He doesn't read. He has things read to him. Grr. AZ didn't used to be a red state. It's become that because of all of the out-of-state people that move there and treat us who are native AZ Eurasians like poop. Anna Bees, wait. I'm confused. I thought you were in a different state. You're native Arizona, Azure Asian, right? You're native Azure Asian. And yeah, I love that you put it like that. That was so weird. That was so weird when Little T was campaigning and he was reading off of teleprompters and it said Arizonians and he couldn't do it. He just said Azure Asians because again, his reading level is not good. And we all make mistakes, especially when we're reading and speaking publicly, but that was hilarious. He didn't even try to correct himself. Right. Yeah, I know. I just didn't want to say with other people. I wasn't sure. Yeah. Kansas City, Missouri, Arizona's home. That's a really good point. I didn't realize that. But yeah, I know a lot of people move to Arizona the way a lot of people move to Florida because it's another sunshine state. Wow. And yeah, it has a lot of reservations and tribal lands. I think a lot of states have a lot of reservations and tribal lands, and people just don't talk about it. I mean, Washington State has a ton, and they are talked about, and they are known about. Arizona, obviously, with is it the Hopi, I think? The Navajo. And then, but I think every state does still, or at least most, is just not talked about. It's like trying to make those cultures invisible. So it's evil. It's just sick. It's absolutely sick. These white dudes, they don't care how many people they victimize. And they are victimizing the masses with this whole Doge thing and canceling everything. And basically because they want to steal all the money for their own freaking profits, in my opinion. It's gross. Yeah, I wrote down, remember that the DA in the Watts case stayed with the R family for a few days. He flew to their home state, North Carolina, and he stayed in their home with them for a few days, which to me is so bizarre on so many levels. That shouldn't have happened. Of course, they're going to open their home to him. And I guess, of course, he's going to want to take advantage of that so he can try to schmooze. In no world should that have happened. He should have just stayed at a nice hotel. Obviously, his job would foot the bill for it. But I just think it's outlandish. It's absolutely outlandish that he stayed with them. Like I said, of course, they're going to offer that. Of course, because these people are so devastated and just the distraction of his company alone is going to be helpful when they're in such pain and suffering. But they want to get as much information from him too. So they would be very motivated to try to keep him in the home so that they could get every tidbit of info to try to make sense of something that's never going to make sense. But I think they have an inappropriate alliance with him, an inappropriate alignment that, rather than admitting that or even questioning that, they're just going to lash out at somebody like Armchair Detective. And it's just, he did a really half baked job, in my opinion. That's putting it nicely. The DA knew that NA lied, or NK. Rourke knew that Nicole Kessinger bald-faced lied to him. He knew that she destroyed evidence. He even said in one of his pressers publicly that she mostly told the truth. That means that she lied. I mean, he publicly acknowledges it and then still tries to say everything's fine. Nothing to see over here, folks. But yeah, the re-traumatization that it would bring up to question the case, to question the DA, to question the mistress, that's going to be more than the family could endure. But yet, in the meantime, you're taking the chance that a person who did this with their bare hands is roaming the streets freely and showing up at other people's funerals. The Tesla thing just continues to financially fall, just slide out of control. So who else has investments with that company that they are losing a lot of money? I wonder if El Presidente has some stocks in there. I bet he does. I believe that Scaramucci has some stocks in there. Anthony Scaramucci, remember? He worked for the first Little T administration for 7 or 8 days. And then I thought he had done all this soul searching and became a really good person. And he has his own YouTube channel. He has his podcast and he speaks the truth. And I don't agree with him on everything, but he's speaking his truth. And I find that just very admirable. But then with this whole Tesla thing, he started like, people, come on, don't take it out on Tesla. And I wasn't the only one that was like, wait, so you've got money invested in Tesla? Like, just bite the bullet and dump it. Like, obviously you've got money invested in them, because why are you all of a sudden being spineless and having no scruples about that when you are trying to be a stand-up person about everything else? So El Presidente has everything invested in the Big E. And if Big E goes toe up, he's toe up, because Big E is his bank account. That's who's paying his bills. It's unbelievable. The effery is just unbelievable. And then he's putting these giant tariffs on all other car companies importing, whether they're importing the metal to make the cars here or they're importing the finished product. I mean, to me, that seems like an obvious scheme to help out the Big E's company. But that's not the only company the Big E owns. He owns the X platform that he just like bought and sold to himself, and then he owns Starbase. SpaceX. He owns SpaceX. But you know, there's a Starbase in Greenland. Huh. Why would they want to usurp Greenland, I wonder? In addition to any Lilith that's under the Earth's surface. And I guess the ice caps there are melting because of, I don't know, maybe like, faux climate change propaganda. I think the propaganda melts the ice caps, and then it exposes more of the Earth's surface. It messes up the whole homeostasis and the balance, and then you get more earthquakes and more storms. But you also can see more of the raw earth elements, and you have better access to the raw earth elements. So people got to stand strong in this resistance, or PP is going to be in control of our nation more than he already is. Oh, that's another thing I want to talk about. And then maybe we should think about wrapping up. We're getting close to 2 hours. This pretend little T used the words pissed off. I'm getting pissed off with PP. That's a little ironic right there, huh? Or a little poetic. He's pretending to be angry with the leader of Soviet Union. I think that he's pretending. I don't think that that's real. He loves him. He loves everything he does. He worships him. And PP has been a war criminal in Ukraine. He allegedly has anywhere from 20,000 to 700,000 children abducted from Ukraine, captive, and he's continuing to attack and unalive the Ukrainians. And our president is trying to say he's angry with them all of a sudden. He's angry with them. I think it's crap. I think it's just a show. That's what I think. And it really pisses me off, because the one thing, if I could respect anything about El Presidente, the singular one thing is that he usually shows you the truth about who he is. Just a freaking massive Tony Soprano style dirtbag. He doesn't lie about that. He doesn't try to cover it up. He just is what he is. And that's a stand-up kind of characteristic, just to be straightforward, even if it's that kind of crookedness. But then he's trying to pretend that he's angry at his bestie. I don't think so. I'm not buying it. Not for a second. Tons of Mexican Americans like me, Anna B says, Navajo, Hopi, and Pima. Good to know. Very good to know. I bet he does have the Yahtzee stock. Oh, and another thing. I'm being serious, though. What's her name? That Fox blondie that was interviewing, and her brother just came out and spoke with, let me see if it'll be in my YouTube history here real quick. The what's her name? So this is a Midas Touch video. Maybe I'll play part of it.
By June 2025, you won't just...
So I can come up with her name, because it's still not coming to me. Her brother spoke out publicly.
One of Donald Trump's chief propagandists on state regime media, Laura Ingraham, has been spiraling out.
Laura Ingraham, that's who I was trying to think of. So I'll just play a minute of this, and then I'll try to wrap it up. This is really interesting.
Lately, So we needed to dig into her past. How could somebody like this do such damage and destruction to our nation and serve as a mouthpiece for the authoritarian regime, the Trump regime? Well, we reached out to Laura Ingraham's brother, Curtis Ingraham, to get some clues about their past together. Here's what Curtis Ingraham, Laura's brother, says about their father. Here, play this clip.
So my father was a Nazi sympathizer. There was a copy of Mein Kampf on the living room bookshelf. He was abusive. He was an alcoholic. So we are in a family of anger.
Now, we were able to conduct that interview with Curtis Ingraham some time ago, but it has extra relevance today where we see Laura Ingraham on Fox, just like this past week, where she describes some of the worst things that have happened in American history, like January 6th and Watergate. And she's like, this is just the leftists spreading more lies, as she was trying to defend Signalgate, whereby the Trump regime's top Defense Department officials and national security advisors were sharing warplanes on text message threads, and accidentally invited into this message thread a reporter from The Atlantic, the editor-in-chief, Jeffrey Goldberg. Here's what Laura Ingraham said. Play this clip.
You know, I was thinking about this. I've been in Washington a long time. This is all a sad repeat of what Republicans have been dealing with since around 1987. Yeah, I worked in the Reagan administration in 1987.
Yeah.
From the Bork hearings to Iran-Contra to the Russian collusion to the myriad anti-Trump hoaxes, Charlottesville, January 6th. It's one long slash and burn campaign. Democrats didn't really care about any of the underlying issues involving any of those stories. They cared about gaining a political advantage.
Now, I want to share for you the types of investigative journalism that Midas Touch was doing at our outset. We want to understand the origins, the pathology, the psychology, what goes on here. How could there be people like Laura Ingraham who exist to cause such damage, devastation, and destruction? So we go to the root, we go to the family. We speak to Curtis Ingraham. Here's what Curtis Ingraham told.
He's awesome, the brother. He really tells the truth. Of course, I'll put a link to this into the description. And since we're getting close to 2 hours, I would play more of it because it's a really great video. But the link will be in the description, and it's on the Midas Touch. It is just 3 hours ago that they dropped it. It's called Fox News Host Loses It on Air as Dark Past is Exposed. So she's usually pretty vile, in my opinion, but lately she's actually been standing up against little T. And then last week she was standing up against the douchebag who got the Jeffrey Goldberg's number sucked into his phone, Mike Waltz. She was standing up to Mike Waltz when he was talking about the phone number getting sucked into his phone. She was like, yeah, right. So her brother is gay and she's very homophobic. And so that's some of what that video is about. But her brother, who was once really close with her, says that she does have a conscience still to this day, even though she's done some pretty vile things. And it sounds like they had a huge falling out. But I love what you said there, Fred Field. And Anna B says, I'm not buying it either. You would think all other billionaires that have stock in Tesla and other things would be mad about the stock market crash. Oh, yeah, they're furious. Although some of them probably think that they can manipulate the market and fake inflate it, and they can, buy and sell at the right time and get rich off of the catastrophic stock market event. But we'll see. Time will tell. Fred says, I will give Putin T will give Putin a timeout. LOL, April Fools. Yeah, exactly. So let's see. Yeah, I guess there's this thing about the black eye. It's called a black eye scheme. I don't know, where people post pictures of themselves with a black eye, and it has something to do with the Titanic type of abuse. and it's some propaganda, and it immediately made me think of Scammy posting the picture of herself with the black eye. You know, it's kind of like the whole panda eye thing. But yeah, the black eye that Virginia Giuffre has in the photo that she put on Instagram of herself, and it just looks very suspicious. It really looks like she got socked in the eye. It doesn't look like the types of injuries you would have from a motor vehicle accident, like getting hit by a bus like that, because the other side of her face isn't bruised at all, I don't think. Let's see. Oh, the regulating with the government entities that are trying to regulate Big E's companies, and those regulating entities getting deleted by Doge, by him basically, is just the most effed up crap. These are crimes, in my opinion. It's absolutely criminal. It's not just unethical, it's illegal. But the person in charge don't care. And actually, E is the one that's in charge, but the one who's in the seat of El Presidente, the one who's carrying the title, he not only doesn't care about any of these things, but he gives all of these people immunity or pardons them. So is he going to pardon? I mean, obviously, Ghislaine Maxwell is going to ask for a pardon. And if they can silence Virginia Giuffre and use her as an example for anybody else who might come forward, absolutely insane. So yeah, back to where we often go with the whole Handmaid's Tale, baby farming kind of thing. Is this already happening? I think it probably is. Of course, somebody like the Big E is not going to be upfront about something like that. He's barely upfront about the 4 baby mamas that he has. He's not upfront about the 4 baby mamas that he has. And, you know, he wants to say, well, it's my personal information. Why would I talk about that? It's like, dude, because you're making yourself a public figure of our government. And there's a law here in our country called the Sunshine Law, where a government has to be transparent. And government officials, especially the leader of the free country, is supposed to share their medical records so that the people can be informed of any potential problems that may arise while that person is in charge. And that's never been disclosed. The financials of tax returns have never been disclosed. Even the simple earlobe that was shot off last summer, that medical record has never been disclosed. And yeah, I know this is the earlobe. I was making reference to the person who doesn't know the difference. Pretty sure this is called cartilage up here. Lobe is down here, dude. Get it right. Get it straight. And again, like, anybody can make those simple mistakes, but when it's like mistake after mistake after mistake, and they never go back to correct themselves, like, how hard is it to go back and correct yourself, or even just have your press secretary go back and correct you? Why not that? Put the Caroline with a K to work. Man, all she does is fight and attack people. That's all she does. She doesn't shut up. She does not shut up. And then little T says, oh, she's a good communicator. It's like, no, to be a good communicator, you have to listen. You have to listen. You cannot be grandstanding, talk incessantly, and be a good communicator. That just means you're a loudmouth. I mean, that just means you're obnoxious and you're domineering and you know how to dominate. It's just unreal. So yeah, let's try to wrap it up, because we are just at 2 hours. And even though I could go on probably for another 2 hours, because I'm just so fired up about this crap, I'll try to keep the video down to 2 hours so that people can watch it. When they get to be 3 and 4 hours, it's just so daunting. You just don't even want to. For me, honestly, I don't want to hit play on those videos. It's hard even when they're 1 or 2 hours long. 1 hour is pretty quick. I can usually do that without blinking, but yeah, there's just so many good videos being made, and like I said, I feel like there's things that I want to say that I don't really hear other people saying. There's a lot of good stuff that other people are saying, but there's things that I feel like I gotta weigh in. So that's why I'm still doing it. And I love you guys for being here and listening and commenting and all that good stuff. Anna B says, I started a sentence and forgot what I was saying midway typing. LOL. Anna B's, I've had that happen too. I know. And that is really frustrating. You write down the first 2 words and then you're like, wait, what? You get distracted by something shiny. There's so much going on right now. They're flooding the zone. Absolutely flooding the zone. They're trying to pull this crap in Wisconsin. They're trying to pull a bunch of crap in DC and overseas. And then the crap with Virginia Giuffre, and then the crap with Idaho 4, the crap with Nicole Kissinger, because that Nicole Kissinger sighting was in January, mid-January, and we heard nothing about it in the public until 3 days ago, maybe 4 days ago at the top, right? Like the timing. What's up with the timing? You're so sweet. Anna B's back at you. So yeah, we'll go ahead and wrap for today. I think that there are a lot of conspiracies. I think that the oligarchs are trying to take over even more than they already are, because nothing is ever enough. And what people that think that they're protected don't realize is that you're next. It doesn't matter if you're a rich white guy, you're still next, because it's the way greed is. So we gotta protect human rights. We got to protect our country. We are not a fascist nation. We are headed that direction, I'm afraid. I believe that that's what this administration is trying to accomplish. I believe that they've been rigging these elections this entire last 2.5 decades at least. And to learn that it started right here in my state. And I'm so grateful that I know for a fact that Fatakis, I've never been able to say his name right. I'm so grateful to know that he's still active. He's still doing his work, and he's got a lot of people doing that work right here in this state. So that's fantastic. It's also very frightening that airplanes continue to fall out of the sky. Stuff is outrageous, and I'm just going to wrap it up on a very positive note, because as you know, if you saw my last video, I was on air when I found out that the little baby was born perfectly healthy, 8.5 pounds, or 8 pounds 5 ounces, 21 inches long. He was born on Sunday, and he's doing great. His mommy's doing great. My son is doing great. So it's very, very happy event to celebrate and to reinforce. Okay, that's one more thing I got to say about Caroline with a K. To reinforce that, yeah, we need to keep our country for our kids and our grandkids and our great grandkids. So Caroline with a K, I heard her say on a video this morning, so it was probably from yesterday. She said, as a mother with a child of my own, first of all, that's redundant. As a mother means you have children of your own, and your child that you're talking about and that child's education, that child is not even a year old yet. but she's talking about the kid as if it were already in school. As a mother with a child of my own, I am very concerned about the quality of education, blah, 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 blah. No, you're not. No, you're not. If you were concerned about the quality of education, you would resist against the current administration for trying to crash and burn and successfully crashing and burning the Department of Education. This is gross. This is absolutely gross. Yes, we do. We will not go down quiet. Well, we're not going to go down, period, Annabise. So happy for you and your family. Yes, we need to stay a free country. Yeah, for Caroline with a K to be all like uppity about her baby that's not even walking or talking yet, just shut the F up. I mean, come on. Because it's lip service. She obviously does not give a crap about education. And neither does the big E, the guy who's really in control of this country. He thinks that all of our kids can be educated by artificial intelligence. And I'm sorry, but it's the connection with a human that makes things work. It is absolutely the connection with a human that makes things work. You need to have that teacher-student relationship. In Thailand, the word for teacher is actually second mother, because your teacher is your second mother. There is a love there that the kids thrive on, the teachers thrive on. Without that connection, you're not going to get a good education. And it's the same thing with the relationship with a doctor or therapist. You have to have that personal connection. And I believe that those connections can be facilitated with our electronic devices, but there has to be a real person there. You can't just have artificial intelligence pretending to be a real person. You absolutely have to have human contact, which is what is so scary about the freaking concept of the baby farming, because too much artificial, just too much. I'm just going to leave it at that. I'm going to try to take a step back, do my yoga. Thanks, you guys, for listening. Thanks for the hearts. Lots of love to you. Peace out. Have a really good rest of your day. I hope that you can eat some protein, eat your vegetables, drink your water, and get some fresh air and sunshine. And most importantly, some human contact. And again, that can be, I think, over the internet. I think that's a major appeal of our YouTube content, is you feel like there is that kind of real human connection. And that's why I get so PO'd when I'm trying to watch something and I realize that it's artificial intelligence, and I'm just like, it's bogus. It's absolutely bogus. There's nothing wrong with utilizing artificial intelligence, but just be upfront and say that it's artificial intelligence. Don't try to pretend that it's a person, because people will figure it out, and it's just stupid. And what's scary is that artificial intelligence, I'm sure, will continue to evolve and be much, much harder to identify. Okay, I got to go. Thanks for listening to me rant, you guys. And I'll put lots of links in the description. It usually takes me a few hours to get it all done, because I do it while I'm reviewing the video too. And then when it's a longer video, it takes longer. So love and light. Peace out. Have a fabulous day. Yeah, I do too. Once I realize that it's AI, I'm just like, next. Yeah. Who needs that? You got to have the human element. We're human. Hello. We don't want to be bots. Thanks anyway. We'll leave that for E and T and all the PP. Okay. Love and light, you guys. Thanks again.